Hey, music nerds, fans, and maybe even bands. I'm Ivan, and welcome back to another amazing, epic, phenomenal, iconic video. Today, we're doing yet another discography review of one of my favorite bands. This is a band that seems to totally reinvent themselves with every release, yet still maintain their quality. This is a band that, ever since I saw them live in 2019, has been one of my very favorites. I'm talking about the Justin Vernon experience itself, Bon Iver. Bon Iver is a project started by Justin Vernon after a very unfortunate series of events. His band broke up, his girlfriend broke up with him, and he got diagnosed with mono. So he did what anyone would do: go to a cabin and make an album. I've heard people say that Bon Iver is like the opposite of Tame Impala, where with Tame Impala, everyone thinks of them as a band, but it's actually just one guy. And with Bon Iver, everyone thinks it's one guy, but it's actually just a band. Because the project isn't just Justin Vernon. It also includes Sean Carey on drums, keyboards, and vocals, Matthew McCowan on drums, bass, and vocals, Andrew Fitzpatrick on guitar, keyboards, and vocals, and Michael Lewis on a variety of instruments, but in my eyes, the most important of which is saxophone. The band has shifted around its lineup a lot, but those are the main members. Alright, now that we know something about the band, let's put on a flannel, grow a beard, put on a beanie, get some craft beer as we talk about Bon Iver. As I mentioned earlier, Bon Iver started after Justin Vernon's life kind of crumbled around him. He went to a cabin in the middle of the woods and made an album as a kind of therapy. The result was 2007's Forever Ago. This is one of the most essential albums in indie folk and maybe even music in general in my eyes. It has incredible songwriting, beautiful instrumentation, and a very intimate sound. This album makes me cry pretty much every time I listen to it. You can really feel Justin's pain with each note he sings in his powerful falsetto. Flume is a great opening track with a really beautiful chorus. The best way to describe this album is powerful. It's so emotionally raw, and you can feel the sadness and depth in every aspect of the record. Every song on here is a standout for me. I really love how Creature Fear and Team flow together in a very unique way. The Wolves Acts 1 and 2 is a brilliant track that really takes its time. I think the closing track, Re-Stacks, is my favorite on here. It closes the album really well, and it feels like a big warm hug. This album is truly fantastic and has been one of my favorite albums ever since I first heard it. After their stellar debut, Bon Iver released an EP in 2009 entitled Blood Bank. I'm not really a fan of this EP. I like aspects of it, but I don't find it very interesting or exciting. It feels like they were trying a lot of new styles, and because of that, it doesn't really feel very cohesive. Every song is totally different from the last, and they don't really connect together in a satisfying way. That being said, I think this EP is very important to the band's progression, as it would be an experiment that would lead to the sounds of their next few projects. The one track I feel like I really need to talk about is Woods, which you might know if you're a Kanye fan because it was sampled in Lost in the World from My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. That song did something that no Bon Iver song had done before, and that is the inclusion of autotune. The song adds vocal layers on top of vocal layers to create this digital choir of sorts that's super cool. Again, this project is not very interesting, and it's definitely my least favorite project from Bon Iver by far, but it's the only project from them that I really have anything negative to say about whatsoever. So let's just go on to their next album. In 2011, Bon Iver released their self-titled sophomore album, Bon Iver, Bon Iver. This album is very different from Forever. It has much more polished production and more rock instrumentation. This album features possibly the best run of opening tracks on any album I've ever heard. The first 4 tracks are all perfect. Opening with Perth, which is probably my favorite Bon Iver song, with its beautiful guitar riff and amazing climax. Perth transitions very well into Minnesota, Wisconsin, which is another brilliant song that I absolutely love to death. The next song is probably the most popular on the album, Holocene, and it's also a very effective tearjerker. I love how they bring back the acoustic folk elements of For Emma on this track. Super powerful. The last song of this incredible opening run is Towers, which is definitely one of my favorite songs, not just by the band, but in general. It also features what might be my favorite moment in any song ever, at about the 1 minute and 43 second mark. It's absolute musical perfection. The rest of this album is really great as well, but nowhere near as jaw-droppingly brilliant as the first 4 tracks. For a while, this was my favorite Bon Iver album, and while it's probably not anymore, it's still one of my very favorite albums ever made. So what is my favorite Bon Iver album? Well, in 2016, Bon Iver released their 3rd album, 22 A Million. This is my favorite Bon Iver album, for sure. It took a while for me to fully appreciate this album because it's very different from Bon Iver's past music, and it's definitely their least accessible project. But over time, it's become my number 1 for many, many reasons. The way the band just went all in on experimenting with electronic elements worked like an absolute charm, opening with Oversoon, which has a brilliant use of tons of vocal samples, and a great build that really introduces the world of this album. This album is so unique and odd in the most beautiful way. I love the distorted drums and somber melodies on Death Breast, which kind of reminds me of something that might be on Kanye's Yeezus album, which is probably my favorite Kanye album, although it's hard to decide. Freaks is one of the most fascinating songs on here. Similar to Woods from the Blood Bank EP, this song features heavily warped and auto-tuned vocals from Justin, but it's one of the most gorgeous songs I've ever heard, despite just being vocals with a ton of effects on them. 29 Stratford Apps is another gorgeous track that brings back more of that folk sound from the band's early work, but also adds in the new electronic elements with pitch vocal samples, which works so well on this track. I'm a huge fan of 666 with its guitar part and the way it builds. It's kind of similar to Perth from the self-titled, which, as I said earlier, is my favorite Bon Iver song. Every song on here is just amazing, and I absolutely love everything about it. This album is a true masterpiece and one of my very, very favorite albums of all time. After making such a left turn of an album with 22 A Million, there were many ways the band could have gone with their next project. They could do what Bon Iver always do and go even further into a different sound, or they can make something very similar to 22 A Million, or they could go back to past styles. What they ended up making was 2019's I. This album is very interesting to me. It's an awesome collection of songs of many different styles. We have electronic infused songs with catchy melodies like Hey Ma or Me. We have more soulful tracks like You, Man Like, and tons of other awesome songs of tons of different styles and influences. While I don't love this album quite as much as the others, it's still one of my favorite albums. It has so many songs that I love, and in a way, it's one of their easiest to listen to because it's not as sad or ambitious, so it's good for more casual listening, as well as more intense and thoughtful listens too. I love the track We. It has such a cool sound, and it just has me bobbing my head whenever I hear it. This album is a good culmination of the band's evolution, but they also progressed into something slightly different. It's just a great album, despite it probably being my least favorite Bon Iver album, but it's still nearly flawless. That just shows how much I love this band. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, because I definitely enjoyed making it. Anytime I can talk about a band I love as much as Bon Iver is a moment I will always savor. I'm working on some new videos for you, and the next video will be my 10th video. My original goal for this channel was to have 10 videos before summer, but I didn't anticipate how soon that would be. And that video is going to be my most ambitious video yet. I'm almost done scripting it. It's going to be amazing. I know that you're going to enjoy it. But until then, stay epic, stay safe, and stay a music nerd, fan, or maybe even band.